Twisting Blades is finally back, baby. Able to dish out 100 billion DPS in trash gear and without witch powers, it's going to be one of the absolute top dog builds in Season 7, and holy shit, am I glad for it to be back again. You can play it all the way from level 1 to max, head straight for the pit, and start speed farming pit 100s with just a bit of gear. And decked out, you'll be getting poison ticks for hundreds of billions. Pretty epic, huh? Damn right. Welcome to Pergaming. This is Pergaming from Pergaming, and in this one, we'll cover all you need to know to play the Twisting Blades build, from level 1 to being maxed out and blowing up the pit. But first, you didn't know about me. There are 2 games that's been with me since I was a snot-eating child.
Yummers.
Diablo, obviously, but also Warhammer, which makes me proud to present Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus, an excellent turn-based game set in the 40k universe. What I enjoy about this game the most is its fast-paced combat, where your choices actually matter. On top of that, as a mobile game, the content is absolute top-notch with great graphics and nasty sound effects. And if you want a mobile game that you can play long-term, great, because it's also being updated frequently and is now up to over 80 playable champions. Yep, pretty goddamn bonkers. All you have to do to start blasting is to scan that QR code, press the link in the description, or both. Let's start right off with the interactions and the buffs to the build. All the damage that we're dealing with this build in the endgame comes from our poison imbuement. This scales via your base damage off your skill, which Twisting Blades has a buttload of. This worked great in the previous seasons, making Twisting Blades roughly an A-tier build. But now, my friends, Alchemical Admixture has been getting humongous fucking buffs all over the place. And this thing is nasty as hell. This is where all the damage comes from. By dealing 2 different non-physical damage, in other words poison and something else, you'll increase your imbuement damage by your total amount of poison, shadow, and cold damage. Thing is, though, that if you stack the non-physical damage stat, then that works as poison, shadow, and cold all at once, meaning you get triple the value. So getting 100% non-physical damage turns out to actually grant us 300% for the key passive, which it in turn transforms into a fuckton of multiplicative damage for our poison imbuement. This, my friends, is what makes the build so nasty. This, in combination with poison imbuement being a poison skill, allows us to scale the thing even further. Because, spoilers, we have a lot of ways to scale poison damage in this game. For example, the noxious ice and creeping death aspects, a bunch of passives in the Paragons and hell, even the new witch powers are benefiting us as well. Now, depending on where you are in your progression, your skills and build will vary slightly. So let's head for the planner and see how to make the build depending on progression. For starters, we have the endgame version, which is the full uber-duber swiper setup. The mid-game is partially an endgame setup, where we use uniques but no ubers. And finally, leveling is what you use to get to level 60, then you ditch that shit for the mid-game setup. I'm going to focus on the mid-game setup and leveling here, as it will take you dogshit dad gamers a few weeks to get the ubers needed. And starting us off, we're rocking the Titty Twister skill for Big Damn, along with Death Trap. The reason I'm using Death Trap is twofold. First, we want to use preparation to reset our other cooldowns with ease. And secondly, in the Paragons, we have the No Witnesses node, which grants us a massive damage bonus. Fun fact though, Death Trap is actually not the best option for damage, that is now Shadow Clone. So why am I using Death Trap? Well, you are free to pick whatever the hell you want, but I'm using Death Trap to pull enemies in as I'm speedrunning. The Shadow Clone skill does indeed provide us with damage since it got buffed and now benefits from all of your stats, but the thing is fucking stupid and refuses to do what I want it to. So I'm going with Death Trap. Death Trap also makes a cool sound, which I like. We then have Poison Imbuement, which is where our damage actually comes from. We combine that with Dash for mobility, along with Smoke Grenade and Poison Trap for even more damage. And of course Preparation, which by the way, you won't have to do that shitty class quest to get this season. Absolutely lovely. When it comes to the leveling version, you're instead swapping your skills to use Puncture early on, which you'll ditch at once when you've got enough energy sustain to keep spamming without running out of energy. This should be roughly after you obtain your Inner Sight. You can then throw Puncture in the trash and grab Poison Imbuement or Smoke Grenade for additional single target damage. We then have Shadow Imbuement. This is for massive clearing potential, which you'll want when leveling up. We then combine that with mobility via both Dash and Shadow Step and a Dark Shroud as to not fucking die Mao. To do the final leveling, you'll just follow the skill tree, grab the aspects that you're fortunate enough to get, and enjoy life. You can follow the leveling path, but it's not maxed out. Rather just work your way downwards and pick up the skills and key passive before maxing out your passives. Alright, and for the mid-game version, which is why you're probably here, let's see what items we want. First out is Concussive Strikes aspect, which we're using for Big Dam and Stagger. I wouldn't spend too much of your precious gold swiping capabilities on the helmet though, as you're going to replace this along with your ring as soon as you get your Ubers. But for now, try to look for some cooldown reduction, dex and poison ranks, and more importantly, get Poison Imbue ranks as your temper. This used to be a resource temper, but you're now able to get it on your armor as an utility temper. Next up is Shroud of Khanduras. This thing is actually fucking bonkers due to the non-physical damage it provides in combination with granting us a bunch of Dark Shroud ranks. And if you evade, you'll pull in enemies and blow them up. We then have the Fists of Fate. These are excellent due to two reasons: the high lucky hit chance and the chance to apply random crowd control effects. This works perfectly with Creeping Death, which grants us additional damage per crowd control, but also via Bursting Venoms, which triggers and allows us to keep our poison imbuements up. I'm also mentioning the crit chance here. You want to stack it up to 100% if possible, grabbing GA and masterworking it wherever possible. This is to utilize the additional damage bonus from Poison Imbuement. After that, it's time for Noxious Ice, which is just excellent in terms of damage. We do, however, need to freeze enemies for it to work, so it's important that you temper chance to freeze somewhere. Other than that, this is where you cap your armor, along with grabbing a bunch of Poison Imbuement ranks yet again, because that shit is not allowed to run out. Alright, and then Rakanoth's Wake. This thing is just pure fucking excellence. Non-physical damage, cooldown reduction, it caps our resistances and provides us with movement speed. Actually disgusting. It also allows you to deal fire damage, so you're gaining the damage bonus from the Alchemical Admixture key passive. Without it, I'd temper Elemental Surge on a weapon. And speaking about the weapons, here you're grabbing Aspect of Elements as it grants a multiplicative damage bonus to your existing non-physical damage, granting a disgusting damage bonus. You'll also temper chance for Twisting Blades to hit twice and either cutthroat attack speed or damage per Dark Shroud, depending on how much attack speed you have. There are calculators out there to maximize the breakpoints, but you can leave that to the big boys trying to push the highest of pits for now. You then slap on the Blade Dancer's aspect to make the twisters spin, and Bursting Venoms to get your poison imbuements up and rolling. As previously stated, this thing requires lucky hit, so having Fists of Fate becomes highly valuable as to not run out of poison imbuements. When it comes to the amulet, we're slapping on the Creeping Death aspect for a massive damage bonus and try our best to get some Dex, Unstable Elixirs, and Frigid Finesse ranks in combination with a chance to freeze temper, which is insanely important. We then finish this build off with the rings. where we slap on the corruption aspect for big damn and the conceited aspect for even more big damn. As to not run out of energy, I've also grabbed resource cost reduction here, and on one of the rings you want lucky hit, chance to make enemies vulnerable, as it will be our only way of obtaining vulnerable. And that, my friends, is the gear. What do you say we check out the runes and the new powers now, huh? Hell yeah, let's do it. To spawn dark shrouds out of our asshole, we're grabbing Pock and combining it with Mott, which summons dark shrouds. Easy as that, saving us a skill slot. We're then rocking Zan and combining it with Lack to stay alive easy peasy. Your ultimate should be spammable in the endgame, allowing you to gain the challenging shout damage reduction permanently. And then to the fun stuff, the witch powers. Piranhado will be used to pull enemies in, which you can then in turn blow up more easily. To sort out our healing in combination with being a growth and decay power, we're using Aura of Siphoning. This thing will follow you around and heal you up, and we'll see soon why we want it to be a growth and decay power. Next, we have Decay Augmentation, allowing us to execute enemies with huge damage over time on them. Breath of the Coven, which is going to grant us 30% attack speed, as we have one Psyche power and a bunch of growth and decay. We then have Soul Harvest, which is one of the absolute best powers, granting us a bunch of dex, and finally Hex of Shattering, which simply grants us a bunch of damage reduction and can grant us guaranteed crits when chopping off heads from the Head Rotten. And finally, we have a few gems that we can utilize for additional damage. Vulture Talon to help with clearing, allowing the poison to tick faster. Dust Stone for additional damage. And finally, Friend of the Bog, granting us 10% dex along with max life. This thing requires 3 growth and decay powers, which is why we're grabbing it. Cool, huh? Yeah? Alright friends, nicely done. If you're still here, then you are one confirmed legend, and that's for sure. Let's check out the skill tree now, shall we? Correct, we shall. The basic skills are getting the wet fart treatment. We then head on off to pick up our twisting blades along with enhanced and advanced twisting blades. This thing is absolutely massive, allowing us to keep spamming our death trap and in turn the rest of our abilities with ease. We then grab some boring-ass defensives along with some additional damage. I'm also grabbing trick attacks in this particular setup, allowing us to keep up 100% crit chance in the mid-game setup before we get better gear. Dash allows us to dash, and Dark Shroud allows us to not fucking die. After that, it's time for some big damn in Smoke Grenade in combination with Exploit and Malice, followed by heading off to the imbuement skills. Here we max out our poison imbuement, grab enhanced poison imbuement, which helps us out with energy. When we manage to get the bursting venoms and can spam poison imbuement, this thing keeps us well and healthy with energy. We then have blended poison imbuement, which is why we want to get crit chance, a few boring-ass passives, and frigid finesse for big stonk damage bonus as long as we freeze enemies. In the ultimate skills, we grab Death Trap or Shadow Clone. Feel free to use whatever you want. Aftermath is then our main source of healing in combination with the witch powers. It also resets our energy bar. And finally, Second Wind, which is our barrier, Innovation, which helps us solve energy, and Alchemical Admixture for the humongous damage bonus. And that, my friends, are the skills and passives we use. We haven't seen our best friend in a while, so let's take a quick intermezzo, enjoy a bit of music, and we'll make ourselves ready for the Paragons and Mercenary. Next up, we have our friendly mercenary friends. This is easy peasy. Subo is the goddamn man, providing us with wall hack via Seeker in combination with Molotov, which increases our damage over time. We then finish it off with Snipe, which can trigger additional Molotovs and in turn increases the uptime of our damage over time buff. To stay alive, we also reinforce ourselves with Raher and select Bastion, which we want to cast as often as possible. Alright, time for the Paragons. In the starting board, we slot in the Bane glyph as if our life depended on it. And why not slot it in nice, slow and gentle? Because it's bonkers, that's why. For starters, it has 2 lovely multiplicative bonuses, but it also provides us with poison damage, which works directly on the alchemical admixture key passive. We then head off to fucking Narnia, pick the No Witnesses node, which now that I'm looking at it, also got buffed for some godforsaken reason. Anyhow, due to this, you need to grab 300 ultimate skill damage. And how do you obtain that? Well, that's no problem because we're grabbing versatility to boost our poison imbuement and nearby magic nodes at the same time, which holds a buttload of ultimate skill damage. The rest of it you grab here and in your weapon gems where you want to socket diamonds. As third board, we go for exploit weakness for the massive DPS increase and slot in the canny glyph, which triple dips. For starters, we get the additive damage from it. Secondly, this goes 3 times into the key passive. And finally, the multiplicative bonus from when it's a legendary glyph also grants a multiplicative bonus both to your damage and your key passive. So in short, it's fucking bonkers. The rest of the nodes are then for defensives. Snooze, am I right? Instead, we get the hell out of there to pick Eldritch Bounty for a 30% damage increase in combination with some defensives and the tracker glyph. This we use only for the multiplicative bonuses, as the additive bonus is actually shit, not contributing to the key passive. And finally, cheap shot for bonkers, amounts of damage, even more defensives, and socketing control for the huge 20% damage bonus against frozen enemies, which yet again makes tempering damage to frozen enemies and lucky hit insanely important. Hell guys, we're late. Late to get hecking good, that is. You didn't think I'd leave you and your old fart brain without telling you how to play the build, did you? Nah, so let's check it out. The playstyle is incredibly easy. You have your dash for mobility, and the rest of your skills are there for damage. So what you do is simply to dash around like crazy and spam the rest of the buttons. Thing is, though, that smoke grenade is slow as shit. So ideally, you'll spam your death trap and poison trap on cooldown and then use smoke grenade only on elites and bosses. You would then dash to an elite, press all of your cooldowns, delete the pack, and continue. When it comes to bossing, you don't have to do anything special. All you need to know is that pretty much all of your damage comes during the staggering phase. So before you stagger the boss, you need to prepare by getting your poison trap and smoke grenades up. And in case you ever run out of energy, then you have your death trap to bring you back up, as well as reset the rest of your cooldowns. And that's all you need to know. You are now an expert at this build. Alright friends, that's all for this one. And before you leave, don't forget to check out Tacticus. You can download the game using my QR code or the link in the description. Have a good one.